Hi, I'm Fred Everett.
And I'm Lisa Everett.
So far, we've looked at married love as a mutual gift of self that has certain characteristics: free, total, faithful, exclusive, and fruitful. And we've considered 4 habits of happiness that will make married love grow: giving praise, giving thanks, asking for forgiveness, and asking for what we need. Now we are going to look more closely at communication in marriage, how to build good habits, and how to avoid destructive patterns.
First of all, let's consider why communication is so very important in marriage, as social science research makes clear. Communication is crucial because it expresses the concrete ways that couples strive to live out their mutual gift of self on a daily basis. It's one thing to promise to make a complete gift of myself at the altar on our wedding day, but another to live it out moment by moment in marriage. This entails the willingness to share my whole self with my spouse and the willingness to receive the gift of my spouse in return. So the basic attitude that we should strive to acquire in this whole area of communication in marriage is openness. Can I truly be open and share what is really on my mind and heart with my spouse? And can I truly be open when my spouse shares with me what is really on his or her mind and heart? This kind of openness requires courage and vulnerability and trust on the part of both husband and wife.
Now, when we think about the subject of communication, we tend to focus on the words we speak to one another. But social science research confirms what we know from our own experience, that especially in intimate relationships, a significant portion of communication is actually nonverbal. 2 of the most important categories of nonverbal communication are body language, particularly facial expressions, and tone of voice. Part of the reason for this is simply the way that we are wired as human beings. Think of an infant in his or her parents' arms. Long before that child can understand spoken language, he or she picks up many messages about how loved he or she is through the happy expression on mom and dad's faces and their playful tone of voice. We carry the same sensitivity to nonverbal communication into our intimate adult relationships, especially the relationship of marriage.
Let's turn now to verbal communication and take a look at 2 habits that can really foster intimacy in your relationship. First, we suggest setting aside at least 15 minutes each day for FaceTime, where you give each other your focused attention just to chat and catch up on each other's day. This is a time to tune into your spouse, to really listen to him or her, and to notice any nonverbal messages as well. Maybe your wife looks a little down and you ask her what happened during the day. Or perhaps your husband seems anxious and you ask how his presentation for tomorrow's meeting is coming along.
Another habit that we recommend is setting aside a longer period of time every week, perhaps an hour or 2, to share an enjoyable activity together. Think of it as your weekly date night, even if you never leave your house. For many years, when all our children were still at home, we would set aside one night a week when the little ones were in bed and the older ones were upstairs doing homework to watch a mystery or some series. Your weekly date night can be as simple as cuddling up on the couch to talk, listen to music, or watch a program, or spending some time together on a game or hobby or project that you both find enjoyable.
We feel that we can talk to each other about anything. Sometimes we might not know how to talk about it, but if it's something important, we'll figure out a way.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's why we have date night, so we can talk about it.
Yeah, that is true. We do date night every Wednesday, and that's an opportunity for us to just go out and do something and have some fun. But if we have something that we need to talk through, we'll do that as well. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we'll get together on Tuesdays for lunch too, mm-hmm. and we go to Mass at the Basilica at Notre Dame on Tuesdays, and then we'll go out to lunch and we'll talk through things at that point in time. And we always have a couple of favorite spots that we go to.
Remember John Gottman, who we introduced to you last time and who has been researching relationships for 40 years? In 1986, the year we were married, he and his colleagues built an apartment laboratory at the University of Washington that was dubbed the Love Lab. A few years later, he conducted a study with 130 newlywed couples, inviting them to spend the day at another laboratory disguised as a beautiful bed and breakfast retreat. The purpose of the experiment was for researchers to observe the couple's ordinary interactions in a relaxed setting, including nuances in facial expressions and other forms of nonverbal communication. This is what they discovered, as documented in an article titled Masters of Love. Throughout the day, partners would make requests for connection, what Gottman calls bids. For example, say that the husband is a bird enthusiast and notices a goldfinch fly across the yard. He might say to his wife, "Look at that beautiful bird outside." He's not just commenting on the bird here. He's requesting a response from his wife, a sign of interest or support, hoping they'll connect, however momentarily, over that bird. The wife now has a choice. She can respond by either turning toward or turning away from her husband. Though the bird bid might seem minor and silly, it can actually reveal a lot about the health of their relationship. The husband thought the bird was important enough to bring it up in conversation, and the question is whether his wife recognizes and respects that. People who turned toward their partners in the study responded by engaging the bidder, showing interest and support in the bid. Those who didn't, those who turned away, would not respond or respond minimally and continue doing whatever they were doing, like watching TV or reading the paper. Sometimes they would respond with overt hostility, saying something like, "Stop interrupting me, I'm reading."
What the researchers found is that the couples who turned towards each other 9 times out of 10 as newlyweds were all still married 6 years later. At the other extreme, the couples that only turned to each other a third of the time or less were all divorced. This research points to a crucial dynamic in marriage in which we repeatedly seek to make connections with our spouse in the ordinary, everyday moments of our life together. As couples, we continuously make bids to each other, attempting to solicit some kind of affirmation, attention, or affection from our spouse. Turning towards our spouse starts with becoming aware of the bid in the first place and paying attention to what he or she is seeking. A partner who turns toward may verbally acknowledge the other's statement, nod in agreement, make eye contact, touch the other's hand, or respond positively in a number of ways. Every time we turn towards our beloved's bids, we are making a deposit in our emotional bank account as a couple, little by little building up the positive feeling and love between us.
Gottman has found that couples in long-lasting, highly satisfying marriages have a ratio of 5 positive interactions for every negative interaction. In other words, they have far more deposits than withdrawals in their emotional bank account, and plenty of reserves to draw upon when conflict occurs, as it does in every relationship. Failed connection is most often due not to animosity, but to indifference. Regularly missing our partner's bids adds up over time and eats away at the relationship. So whether we are preparing for marriage or have been married for many years, we need to make a commitment to become more aware of our beloved's bids and to turn towards him or her as often as possible.
Another concept that can make a big difference in a couple's relationship involves learning your spouse's love languages. Based on more than 3 decades of experience counseling couples, Dr. Gary Chapman proposes that there are 5 basic love languages through which people generally experience and express love. Most people, he has found, have a primary love language as well as a secondary one, and it is important for couples to know the dominant ways in which their spouse experiences and expresses love. Too often, a person assumes that the way that he or she prefers to experience love is also the same for his or her spouse.
Here are the 5 love languages. Words of affirmation. Some people experience love primarily through words of admiration or affection, whether spoken or in writing. Quality time. Other people experience love through another's focused attention on them and sharing activities together. Receiving gifts. Some people enjoy receiving something tangible as a sign of someone's love, not necessarily anything expensive or extravagant, but something they can see and touch. Acts of service. Other people feel loved particularly when someone serves their needs or even anticipates their desires in some way. Physical touch. Some people experience love primarily through physical gestures such as caresses, hand-holding, hugging, a peck on the cheek. You can each go to the 5 Love Languages website and take a 15-minute profile to assess your own love language and share the results with one another. Thinking about the answers to the following questions can also give you a pretty good idea of your spouse's primary love language. How does he or she most often express love to others? What does he or she complain about most often? What does he or she request most often?
One technique that can be very helpful is for each person to write a list of 3 to 5 things that they would really appreciate their beloved doing for them as an act of love. Then exchange those lists, and you can now try to do them for each other. As long as nothing is immoral or illegal on that list, you now have a good idea of how to love your beloved in a way that really speaks to him or her.
We learned our love languages when we were engaged, actually, at our conference. That was really helpful because I think my love language is time, and his primary one is touch, and so I think that learning that was helpful because I would often try to show him love by giving him my time, so we often like to speak our own love language, and then vice versa. So I think learning that I need to speak his love language and he needs to speak mine in order to show the other affection and not just receive that.
I would say learning each other's love languages is a pretty funny road to go down once you get married. I think oftentimes couples think that they have the love language thing down, as we did, and then we quickly realize that that's not the case. I think when you're dating, maybe at least for us, we were just trying to kind of please the other, and so it doesn't really happen until you're married, and in your day-to-day life, you really have to act on these love languages. And I would say for me especially, it was easy for me to just think that this love language of Madeline's, which is time, was something that I really had to work on when we were on a date or like a special anniversary or something like that. But you quickly realize that like to truly love your spouse on a day-to-day basis, these are love languages that you have to incorporate in the little things. So, for instance, just sitting down with you when we wake up and having coffee together on the couch is really important to you, whereas I would probably prefer to get in the shower and get to work 20 minutes earlier.
It takes a lot of intentionality on a day-to-day basis and multiple times a day to just remember to show your spouse that kind of love. When Carson comes home from work, just remembering that I should give him a kiss or not just try to give him my time because that's what I would like at the end of the day.
Right. But also going back to communication, when just your spouse wants to love you. So to be able to mention like, hey, lately I haven't, felt this sort of thing from you. Like, if you could just even like give me a hug and a kiss when I leave for work every day, that would really help. Obviously your spouse wants to love you better. And so being able to come to the other and say something like that has been really helpful for us, I would say.
We actually praise each other a lot. That's something that I think we both do pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
I know you do, at least. But our our love language, our principal love languages are both the same, words of affirmation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of affirming going on in this relationship.
We say I appreciate you a lot.
Yeah.
Because we really do.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the little things, I can't stop affirming her. I can't. Like, it is a habit. You know, it's this. I'm just so thankful and grateful for all that she does. Definitely words of affirmation for her. I would say words of affirmation is for sure one of her love languages. For another one, I think. What are the other ones? There's gift giving. There's physical touch. There's words of affirmation, quality time, and there's one more. I
Acts
think
of service.
acts of service. Yeah, I think physical touch for one, and definitely physical touch.
Yep.
You know, she loves to, you know, she loves to hold hands. I love to hold hands too, but you know, and a hug and a kiss, like that's so important for both of us. But you know, I recognize that as one of her main love languages, and that's just a way that I respond to her. So.
And I respond well to affection.
She does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been very, very valuable to talk to each other explicitly about what our love languages are, and for us each to reflect and even try to learn that about ourselves, what the things are that communicate love to us most effectively and most fully. And I would say it's been pretty revelatory. We even just went on a marriage retreat recently, you know, after 5 years of marriage, and discovered, and Claire discovered that quality time was a much bigger, quality time was a much more important love language than she had previously thought. She had previously thought that it was primarily communication and, you know, verbal words of affirmation and verbal communication. But even just doing a little inventory, she found how much more important quality time was. And
I think the way that we've developed ourselves in terms of understanding one another's love languages has really been through communication, through practicing, really practically, you know, how do I really hit that need of yours? How can I really address that that language that you speak that maybe I don't speak as well? And it really takes practice, I think, to love someone if it's not a natural language for you. For me, physical touch is important, but it's not nearly as important as it is for John. And so I really had to practice actually conditioning myself. Like when he enters the room or when he comes home from work, I know that what he needs or what he would love is to be greeted affectionately. Like that is just something that he's expressed, and it's something that I know is like going to be a gift to him. And so practicing doing that, like it may not be what I want to do at that exact moment. If the children are whatever needs I'm going, you know, I am addressing of theirs and the house and how I'm feeling, but it can just set us in a beautiful direction together if you can reach out and identify a really practical way to love the other person that you know will be a gift to them. And it's borne a lot of fruit for us just to really say, I know that this is important to you. It's not as important to me, but it's a gift. It's something I do out of love for you. And as a result, you are then filled up to be generous in return. It's really a mutual gift-giving arrangement where you love one another, and so your love is able to fill each other up, and then you're much more able to be generous and a team as you move into whatever difficult circumstances that are constantly arising.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that was pretty revelatory for me as well is realizing that there were times when I would feel connected to Claire, I would feel on the same page as her, and she wouldn't feel connected to me. Or there were times when she would feel really connected, but I wouldn't feel connected to her. And a lot of times that had to do with particular love languages being expressed in one way or another. And so realizing that we can't just assume that we're emotionally on the same page and that we need to constantly be checking in about that.